Welcome. This is Sabrina Monarch, and this is the astrology forecast for August 12th to August 18th. I'm an evolutionary astrologer and a clairvoyant. I sit down every Saturday and channel these forecasts at my desk. And why I say I'm clairvoyant is that I work with these little sparks of light that look like stars in the night sky that appear on the page while I'm writing. And I see them throughout the day and other activities. And I'm even seeing them on the camera lens right now as I talk to you. So I'm really happy that you're here. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. And I also want to inform you that these are written forecasts that I share at monarchastrology.com every week. I'm starting my 6th year of writing weekly forecasts, and I just branched out to YouTube fairly recently to share video versions. So if this is how you found me, if you found me through YouTube, that's super cool. I'd love to hear about that in the comments. Say hi and let me know how you found me. And go ahead and, yeah, I already told you to subscribe. So let's get started about this week's astrology. I'm going to share my screen. And for those of you who have been here before, welcome back. I'm excited to share another week meditating on the planets with you. So we have a new moon in Leo, and that happens at the end of the week. Here's the chart for the lunation. Let me pull up my notes as well. So we have the moon new in Leo. It's conjunct Mercury. And then we have this other aspect between Mars and Aries forming a square to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn this week. It will exact its square to Pluto at the beginning of the week. And then there's this aspect with the lunation. The sun and the moon form a quincunx, or an inconjunct, to these Capricorn planets, and a trine to Mars. So these events, the major events of the week, are very much connected and all tied into the lunation. So we have this new moon in Leo approaching with this pretty loud Mars-Pluto square. And Mars-Pluto is a pretty intense energy. You have the planet of war and action and will square. We're forming this kind of, if you think of cars at an intersection, so you have like a T shape, you have energies that are colliding or clashing, and Pluto is the planet of the underworld, of deep, like cathartic drives for transformation and power. So definitely a pretty spicy mix of planets. And so while on the one hand, we're about to begin this new cycle of self-expression and radiance with the new moon in Leo, as we know from any hero's journey tale, there's all these obstacles and hardships that the hero faces up against as they are seeking to fulfill their mission. So then cue Mars and Aries, squaring that triple Capricorn lineup of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn. And what I actually love about this Mars square to these planets is the possibility that our spirits might be up. We might be kind of ramped up, specifically around facing obstacles in our lives and all the objections we have to why we can't do something. It is actually pretty likely this week that we may be feeling frustrated or thwarted, more intensely aware of the things that we want and that we can't have, or we feel like we can't have, or the things we want to do and that we feel like we can't do. We're really intensely aware of the things that stand in the way between us and our goals, or us and a kind of desired state of mind or emotion that we would like to be in. We basically just like want something and we're frustrated that we can't have it or that we don't already have it. So what I would suggest is that it would be time this week to intentionally divest some of that intense focus and energy that is going into all that frustration. And basically, you know, we're using that energy to punch a wall or to feel defeated that some wall exists. And what if we experimented with a new way of interacting with the wall or with the obstacle? What if we came up with a new strategy? And that's kind of what Mars square Pluto is getting up to this week. It's a first quarter square, and the first quarter phase between any planets involves a crisis in action. It's about trial and error and testing ourselves against the environment, which is kind of what Mars Saturn or Mars Capricorn or Aries Capricorn is like inherently, but also really intensified by this first quarter energy. So in our particular situation, wherever it is that you're feeling really frustrated, we may gain some leverage or mobility if we understand more deeply the nature of the impasse. A kind of reflection or pause that frustration can often ask of us. When we address what's happening at a deeper level, we are engaging in the process of being with the challenge. It is as simple as the fact that when we have a goal or a place that we want to go, there are going to be internal fears that are holding us back, most likely, unless you've already worked through them. But life is kind of infinite and cyclical in certain ways with the stuff that, you know, as you grow, there's more experiences that you have. So as you get over some fears, new fears come up. If you're doing something new or, you know, you haven't done it before, there's often some anxieties that come with that. So addressing these root level fears is part of the process of reaching the goal. Ignoring these fears often keeps the goal out of reach because we're refusing to address something fundamental to the nature of the impasse that we're facing. So then what about I know I'm talking about the inner psychology, but what about the external stuff, the environmental factors, the things about reality, other people that are holding you back for whatever reason? Well, this is not in our control. And what is in our control is how we relate to these issues or how we relate to these obstacles, and identifying what our role is in the situation. And that's where we may most readily experience breakthroughs. Now, if you're a fire sign like me, I'm an Aries, maybe you have a little bit more habit of considering yourself the protagonist of a grand adventure. So you're really into the hero's journey, you have a sense of special destiny, you have a sense of purpose. And so when you come up against a challenge, you know, or maybe you're kind of more like coach energy, like you work with coaches or are a coach. And so you come up against a challenge and you're like, yeah, cool, I get it. I see what this is drawing out of me. I'm ready. And you're down to have the experience. But it's not always that way. Sometimes we are experiencing some kind of challenge and we feel really victimized by it, or we feel like, you know, we're just seeing the problem and we're not zooming out and seeing what is being drawn out of me in response to this challenge. And that's what's going to be really important this week. So I'm going to keep getting into our week in more detail after a few announcements that all happen to involve pictures of my face. It's just that way for now, but Magic of the Spheres podcast. So this is my podcast. I post most weeks and usually interviews, but I have a new solo episode out called The End of Casual, and it's about moving on or like ending an era of quote casual experiences in love and sex. And I wanted to address this and have a conversation about it. I don't think it's something that people talk about that often on social media. And I've already gotten like a lot of feedback from this episode, people DMing me with their reflections. So it definitely like stirred the pot a little bit. And this episode is also, I just want to say, it's like coming from a really non-judgmental and positive place and just talking about like what's right for you. That's, you know, that's your own story, but I'm just talking about what's currently working for me and hope that it can be helpful or inspiring to anyone else on the path of finding or seeking love. And then I have this evolutionary astrology intensive coming up. The deadline to enroll is August 14th. This is an amazing program. It's super transformational. It's a deep dive. We study together for 4 months. We meet every week for a live call, and at the end, we culminate by reading each other's charts. We learn the whole language of soul-based evolutionary astrology, which is astrology based on Pluto and the lunar nodes. And it gives us this really deep perspective on where we've come from in prior lives and what we're still working on. So it's a very like alchemical exciting experience. I love this group that's gathering. It's going to be really awesome. And there's still time to sign up. So check the link in the notes to learn more about it and to enroll. And don't wait till the last minute. The last minute is August 14th, but you know, sometimes there's people who message me like the day after and the day after, like, hey, can I still get in? And, you know, just sign up by the 14th, okay? Online presence is performance art. This is a also super exciting opportunity. This is about cultivating an aligned, magical, personal brand, having fun while you're doing it and making an impact. So heal your inner blocks. We were just talking about that prevent you from taking up space in reality, expressing yourself. I did time this for Leo season because I know that that's super important right now. But also, you know, I created this course because so many people are moving their businesses and their practice online. And for as long as I've been on the internet, I love this place. Like the internet is a place that I just like frolic, like I'm all about it. And for as long as I've been frolicking on the internet, I see people posting online about how much they don't like this experience. And I see them using the medium to complain about the medium when there's a lot of different creative ways that we can engage with the internet. So there's some really a sense of belief systems that's going on about what we think the internet is. And I want to help you re-enchant it to find the magic of this place and the magic that comes from sharing your essence, like putting yourself out there and having people who resonate with you find you and connect with you. So I hope that taking this course can help you expand your business, meet new colleagues, and make new friends in the process. So this is for entrepreneurs, artists, like anyone who wants to increase their web presence and have like a more emotionally, spiritually satisfying relationship with the internet. I would highly suggest reading the course page that I'm linking in the notes because it contains details about all the modules, and I've heard that reading this page is a transformational read in of itself. Oh, and those were all my announcements. So now there's just this picture of this man's back. So it's for a reason. On August 13th, 2020, Mars in 23 degrees of Aries squares Pluto retrograde in 23 degrees of Capricorn, the one that I was telling you about. And it has a little bit of like a frustrating energy. And I think of Saturn really relating to the spine, and like Capricorn is the ruler of, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. So we have this like kind of frustrating, like itchy out of our skin kind of energy potential with this transit if we don't know how to use it. So Mars is going to retrograde in September, by the way, and come back and make this aspect again on October 9th. And then once again when Mars is direct. So the third and last Mars-Pluto square of this cycle will take place December 23rd. And this entire time, no matter how much Mars retrogrades back, it stays an orb of this aspect. So we have a Mars-Pluto zeitgeist for the rest of the year. So we're going to get super familiar with this energy. And I'm like having little epiphanies and tripping out every day, seeing Mars-Pluto in my field in all these different ways and just really getting to know this energy. So I'm going to be continuing to talk about it here on my channel and everything. And I hope that you get to know it well too, in a way that's life enhancing, because Mars-Pluto is kind of intense. So it's going to bring stuff up quite likely. But there's going to be a dynamic friction between core integrity and boundaries with power, vitality, and or anger. So what I mean by this is that anger and boundaries are going to be super connected. Having good boundaries might mean not taking on problems that aren't ours, that we're later going to be mad about, or not getting involved in compromising situations that we're later going to be angry about. Having good boundaries might mean not agreeing to a situation below our standards and then feeling frustrated to what we've signed up for. You see what I'm saying here? So when our boundaries are a little bit weaker, they're not as strong as they could be. Sometimes we agree to things and don't say no when maybe no would have been the better answer. When we're feeling angry or frustrated, we might reflect on its shadow component. where have we given our power or agency away? Sometimes righteous rage is spoken of, which is in a sense like choosing to be emotionally connected and involved and standing up for situations of injustice. I'm not really talking about that here. I'm talking about the frustration and anger that is really something that you want to let go of. The other one is a little bit like there's stuff to unpack there too, and I'm not going to go into that. But consider the shadow of where we've given our power away. When we consider the shadow, sorry, I'm going to go back. When we consider where we've given our power away when we're angry, this is like an alchemical act of self-reclamation. We pull ourselves back from where we have projected our power and made ourselves victims in the process. So there's a little element of this that can also be utilized for things that we are choosing to be involved with. You know, it's not just deciding not to be involved with injustices in our field because, you know, we just want to like live it up and YOLO and whatever, but kind of taking a strong account of like what the emotional boundaries are in terms of time and space and emotional energy that we're leaking out to the things that we're focusing on. This transit, Mars square Pluto, may also signify the discovery or experimentation of new ways of standing up for ourselves or others. Mars in Aries is going to be a real hero underdog, whether that's self-defense or defending others. And this can be places where there's active conflict. And there may be a psychological component to this whole thing. For example, in many stories that involve like an aggressor or a bully and a victim, there is often just like limited help from the environment to intervene or to help. You know, think about movies or episodes of TV series or something where it's kind of like someone's in a difficult position, like they're being antagonized and no one's really helping them. Like with school children, even when someone's being bullied and the story's focus is about, you know, time to learn how to stand up for yourself, kid. Like that's the vibe. Learn how to stand up for yourself, learn how to face your enemy, etc. And this is a very obvious or direct example. A less obvious example could be when a person repeatedly experiences a type of behavior directed at them that they don't like, such as being disrespected, condescended to, or taken advantage of, to name, you know, you name it. And while there may be some wish for the environment to change or for other people to change, a deeper alchemical power exists here of the underdog, Q, Mars, and Aries, or Mars and Aries, like put them both together for extra underdog energy, learning how to step into their power in the face of such conflicts. This way, the underdog's power doesn't really dangle in the hands of other people or the situation, which may or may not change. Changing the dynamics alluded to just now. So when you're repeatedly facing a situation you don't like, you're getting a certain kind of energy directed at you that you don't like, or someone is antagonizing you in a way that you don't like. This is not a judgment here of who's to blame, who should be, you know, better, whatever. It's not about that. It's about what do you do when you're put in a corner like that? So changing the dynamics alluded to this relates to changing one's behavior, which can relate to studying others who represent certain character traits you'd like to embody and then trying them on. So as a personal example that I was thinking of when I was writing this, in my early 20s, I often felt condescended to, like everywhere I went. I've always been pretty smart, pretty like articulate, at least in writing. It took me a long time to become articulate when I spoke. So I kind of had this like secret smart, secret intelligence where maybe the way that I was carrying myself didn't communicate my full depth or, you know, that I felt internally. So I would have this distorted experience of being treated in a certain way that was like, this isn't who I am. Like, that's like the really strong feeling that I got from it. So this was after, by the way, I'd studied Pluto and like started getting into evolutionary astrology, which is all about transformation and like changing your life by changing internally. So I was really resourced by astrology to start making these changes. But I basically started to break this storyline of being condescended to by making more firm eye contact, by holding myself differently, by being really deliberate in my communication, and noticing the typical roles that I was playing interrelationally and disrupting that. So if someone was starting to be condescending toward me, I wouldn't respond by getting into a certain role that I normally would with them. I wouldn't like get mad or anything either, but I would just kind of like hold my boundary, continue to talk to them, and kind of watch them shift. I would energetically focus on being in a more equal relationship to that person, and they would either kind of like, look surprised or just kind of like shift and recalibrate with me. And pretty much, I don't really feel condescended to anymore in my life. It's practically something that never happens in my experience because I intentionally cleared it from my field. And I did it from this very internal level. So I'm not saying that every situation is equivalent to that. There's a lot of, this can be so complex in so many different ways, but thinking about like where you have the internal thermostat to change the energy in a room, not asking other people in the room to change for you. I think that's going to be really powerful with Mars Pluto. So it can be more powerful to change our own behavior and our own interaction with a given situation, rather than to place that responsibility on others, even if arguably they should change. Society's ethics should evolve. Vulnerable people should be protected. People should be treated with respect. Like, all of these things are true. And for any given moment where that is not happening, do we have this resource that we can find within ourselves to have some power and agency in the situation to shift the energy from the inside out? Experiment with it. Likewise, so the opposite of the underdog situation, if we have possessed aggressive tendencies or have abused our power, which is really interesting about the Mars archetype, is that it's the underdog in a lot of ways, but oftentimes people that are aggressive and forceful with their energy feel like a victim too. Like, they don't even always even realize how aggressive they're being. So if you have strong Martian energy or a lot of Aries, there can be, you can get feedback sometimes that you're a lot, or that you're forceful, or that you steamroll or something like that. So if you have those qualities, this is, something to tune into. We can be discovering this week some ways of rebalancing within our environment to be more noble and to redirect our energies more skillfully. If our actions are causing repulsion in the field around us or causing visible discomfort in others, it is definitely cause for some reflection. It's one thing if we're just being ourselves and it's like ruffling people's feathers, not really talking about that. But things like being rude, unkind, or unaware or uncaring of other people's boundaries. And if this is, eliciting a negative response, tune into that. We might experiment with ways of being more kind and more aware of environmental cues and social cues. The warrior isn't just strong and brute, they are also self-accurate and noble. Then on August 15th, Uranus stations retrograde in 10 degrees of Taurus at 7:26 a.m. Pacific. Uranus will station direct again on January 14th, 2021 in 6 degrees of Taurus. So Uranus stationing during a dark balsamic moon, so the end of the moon cycle, just days before the new, may correlate with epiphanies that involve hindsight or understanding the past from a new angle. Having breakthroughs in self-worth is one of the possibilities with Uranus and Taurus stationing. As we increase our sense of self-value, there will be moments in the past that feel so lacking in self-worth. Like, how could I have let that be? I wouldn't have put up with that now, like that kind of thing. Yet this contrast is what brought you to where you are today. So see if you can enjoy the fresh air of your progress. The contrast may be part of the brilliance of the illumination that you experience now, and part of why you won't take this realization or epiphany for granted. And then August 16th, the sun in 24 degrees of Leo will trine Mars in 24 degrees of Aries. So we're getting that trine between the new moon. Like that's going to be, the moon hasn't caught up to this point yet on the 16th, but the sun is there. So we have this Sun-Mars trine at the same time that Mars is square Pluto. So we have like a Sun-Pluto-Mars thing going on. This transit between Sun and Mars can correlate with a basic sense of joy that we feel around being ourselves and acting as ourselves, when we feel animated and motivated about what we are about. Super simple, really special to be in that state of mind. I had to pause for a second, so I don't remember what I was just saying. I'll see if I can pick it up. So this sense of being just like happy about being who we are, really nice, right? This isn't something that happens accidentally. It's about choice. It is only accidental in feeling when it's something that is so habitual to us that we don't think much of it. In a moment-to-moment flow in your life, you can tune into the choices that you're making and feel into if they light or dim your fire. Little choices, micro moments, or big choices. I was thinking of this like a fire, like a literal fire, and like little kindling that you throw into it versus like a whole big log, as a difference between like little micro decisions, big life decisions. And in a moment-to-moment way, this can also be about like snapping out of certain moods by choice, and choosing to boost yourself. So choosing to snap out of a certain mood and like shake or dance or do something that you know is going to cheer you up. Not the feel your feelings strategy by any means, but a sense of shake up the energy and then see how you feel after. For people that already have a lot of water signs or water energy in their chart, they may not necessarily need to practice feeling their feelings. Like some people are already like, they know how to feel their feelings. So how do you shake it up and like break the pattern? And fire is an energy that can help us do that. And the sun and Mars are both in fire signs in this trine. And then same day, Venus in 8 degrees of Cancer will square Chiron retrograde in 8 degrees of Aries at 4:59 p.m. Pacific. So there's already with this Mars Pluto energy, but also Chiron and Aries, there's this part of our experience that's instinctually bursting. Like it just wants to get where it wants to get and is really impatient to get there and frustrated that it's not already there. It's bursting. And there may be a goal that we have or a sense of wanting to be number one in some way. How do you want to be number one? Big Aries need, and Chiron's in Aries, so that's a pain point. There's some invitation here to slow down and consider the ways that we are cultivating environmental factors in our life, how we are cultivating these environmental factors to support our goal. So things like our home life or self-care, things that we do for fun or rest or leisure. These supports do not have to be obviously tied to the goal. They just replenish us and our well-being, and help us feel less voraciously in need when we just feel a little bit more settled. So likewise, because that's the one of just like, okay, chill out, like nurture yourself a little bit. What if you're feeling more like, okay, you've been kind of indulgent, just having fun and not getting really serious about that spark within you? So we can also intentionally cultivate the urgent flame of our soul's desires. So this is the part of us that says today, not tomorrow. and actually shows up as an act of self-care. There's a difference between talking about something we're going to do someday and idly dreaming about it versus actually doing it, and having this loving part of ourselves that can acknowledge when it's time. So interesting balance and a little bit of tension here between like leisure, rest, like just feeling it, being in a good Venusian flow, versus kicking it up a notch and doing something that is showing a commitment that you have to your soul's path. Then Mercury in 24 degrees of Leo will trine Mars in 24 degrees of Aries at 10:29 p.m. Pacific. This communication energy is pretty candid and unabashed if you needed that wave to ride at all. There's more motivation in the field right now, the communication field, just put things out there than to not. And this can relate to conflict coming up, especially just because feelings and thoughts are being made known instead of simmering below the surface. Good-natured disagreements can also occur, and things can be worked out in this like good-natured way. And it may be experienced best when all parties involved have a somewhat strong or a strong sense of self, and the energy feels fairly matched. Otherwise, the more certain or enthusiastic party may dominate easily. So that's the energy of like pushback. I think if you're having a dialogue, are both people willing to say what they mean and push back, or is one person kind of less defined in their point of view, or more going with the flow, or the other person's super animated and pushing a certain perspective? You can see how that might be an unbalanced match. So another way to look at this, if this is something that comes up for you, at an alchemical intrapsychic level, if we tend to attract people who talk over us or always seem more certain than us, we might be learning how to embolden our sense of self. You know, if we're feeling kind of like overshadowed by a bunch of strong energy, that's that Mars Pluto thing I was talking about, of what's the internal thread that you're working through with that external feature in your environment. And then likewise, so other perspective on here, if we're feeling so excited and have so much to say that we're wanting to talk over other people or dominate a conversation, we might consider if we have some good outlets for getting out our ideas and our self-expression needs, so that we're not using other people and casual conversation as a launch pad for our expression needs. When we feel more satiated of our communication and expression needs, then it can make it easier to really be present and attuned with other people and the true present moment of the encounter. This is actually why I have solo podcast episodes, because when I have people on my show to interview them, I want to be in dialogue with them and really showcase them. And I feel like if I didn't have a YouTube channel or get my ideas out there, I might not be as graceful a conversationalist, because I have a lot to say and I need to get that energy out. So if you're like me in that way, think about that. If I think it takes some self-awareness and self-accuracy to notice if we are taking up a lot of space, talking over other people, and not giving other people space to talk. It's one of my pet peeves. It annoys me so much. So anyway, we have a few transits that I didn't write about because there was so much happening. But on August 17th, Mercury will conjunct the Sun in Leo. And on August 18th, Venus in Cancer and Uranus in Taurus form a sextile. So just so you know, but let's get over to the new moon in Leo. So this is 26 degrees Leo, 7:42 p.m. I chose a Griffith because the Sun and the moon in Leo are conjunct Mercury, so the wings. And then we have this aspect between the Sun and the moon to Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn in Capricorn. So that kind of reptilian energy, or like the claws, felt like a good, I guess it's a bird, but when I see these talons, I think of like Pluto energy. So I thought a griffin was like a really good image for this triple combination of energies. So a new moon in Leo is a birth of new forms of self-expression and radiating our essence outwardly so that we may be seen and known. Being radiant is also a key toward being generous and appreciative of other people's brightness without feeling personally threatened by it or jealous of it. Certain opportunities or steps on our life path will truly open up when we're self-expressed and visible. How are people supposed to engage with us if we're hidden? How are people supposed to know about our gifts if we don't show them? You know, that kind of thing. And of course, sharing is a super vulnerable thing to do. And I'm going to get into that. So what holds us back from being fully self-expressed? One major component is shame or fear of being shamed. So we can cue in the inconjunct Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn. And Capricorn relates to things like boundaries and maturity and shame and standards. Like they're all part of the same archetype, but at different kind of valences. So there's meaning in that because sometimes there is a sense within us of boundaries of what we think is proper. But other times, what we're ashamed of is something that's actually super valid, and we just have this conditioned experience to judge it, or we're judging it from the inside. So it can often be like a methodical, slow, deeply intentional process to unwind what it is that we're ashamed of and step into our power in those areas instead. If there is a part of us that we are hesitant to let see the light of day, that is most often connected to either shame. So if there's a part of us that we're hesitant to let see the light of day, this is either connected to shame or a proper sense of timing. Because Capricorn can be like restrictive and withholding, and sometimes with wisdom. Other times because of being inhibited. You know, we don't know. That's where wisdom and discernment comes in. The timing part can be the wisdom of our readiness to be seen in a particular way. So, I mean, I see these little lights that look like sparkles, like stars when I write. I didn't tell people about it for a few years, not because I was ashamed of it. I just wasn't ready to talk about it publicly. So there's either a timing or a shame, and you can kind of feel into which one, but try not to use the timing one as an excuse. There's usually a deep knowing. So the difference between if it's a shame motivation or a timing motivation is the sense of whether dignity and self-trust are present or not, whether there's self-doubt or it's just a sense of like a firm, like authoritative, it's not time. So feel into it. And then this lunation gave me a lot to think about in terms of pride. And pride is not typically thought of as an enlightened emotion. It's even more infamously one of the 7 deadly sins. But pride burns up grief and shame. It's pride that says, I was better than insert some demeaning situation that you've encountered. Like, I'm a prize, like, I'm a gift, like, fuck that. I don't need that in my life anymore. Like, that kind of energy can be prideful. And I'm not saying that this is an end all, but often spiritual people or conscious people or whatever want to bypass that stage and just go straight towards like forgiveness. But as a vibe, pride can be a whole lot more empowering than feeling like our life is over, or like we're just so full of grief, or that we might never experience some kind of joy or something again. So while pride might be detrimental in some scenarios, because it definitely can be, in quite a few scenarios, pride is life-giving. When pride is used to rise above indignity, hardship, oppression, or betrayal, etc., anything else that's heavy and kind of gutting, it's medicinal. Pride that's used to close ourselves off from vulnerability or connection, on the other hand, maybe not as much, unless those boundaries are also wise and intentional in themselves. Pride can come through ceremonially in ritual or dance, or other displays of talent and personal power. The power that we feel in these moments can similarly burn off heavy or stagnant emotions that we don't wish to carry with us. Once you feel more empowered and embodied within yourself, then you can circle back to some of those more enlightened emotions or forgiveness processes or something like that too. I was thinking a lot about this pride stuff though, because you have, Leo can be prideful energy, but it's that in conjunct with Capricorn. Like Capricorn can be super prideful too. And also that there's this sense of a rebirth and shining and like being radiant with this new moon, but that like aspect to all those Capricorn planets. So there's some kind of heaviness. And if we want to shine, but we have this weird sense of like inhibition or guilt or shame about it, then sometimes pride is like a gateway emotion to shake up that heavy energy and move on, basically. So back to self-expression and the question of shame. Are there ways that shame and self-doubt have laid this kind of blanket over your life that kind of puts out your fire? How complicit are you with that? Like really, if those inner thoughts that you have about it were coming from someone else, would you stand for that? Have you given any space to fanning your own flames by intentionally cultivating confidence or empowerment? Inner emotional healing work and being with our feelings and whatever can still occur, but life can also be more fun if we adopt some more empowering mindsets that allow us to have fun just being who we really are and feeling like we have the right to exist and take up space. As a counterpoint, if there are places in life we tend toward arrogance and not being open to any feedback or criticism, we can become very rigid and close ourselves off for opportunities to adjust and become more skillful. Making a mistake or getting negative feedback is not the same thing as being bad or unworthy, intrinsically bad. And yet we often can conflate the two where it is that we're habitually prideful. We wouldn't be so puffed out if we were like able to handle the deflation that can come from the sense of, oh, I made a mistake. You know what I mean? The inconjunct between Leo and Capricorn can relate to the art of the apology, a form of reconciliation that is humble, respectful, and graceful of all parties. So a dignified apology, the sense of making an apology that isn't about, no, I'm so shameful and I'm so bad. And, you know, that feeling can be there. And there's, I feel like I have to think about this a lot more, like what's the art of an apology, but a way to, maybe the Ho'oponopono prayer is a kind of like forgiveness ritual that involves, you know, I'm sorry in it, but just thinking about ways that an apology can be an act of grace for all parties involved and not this kind of seesaw where like one person's great, the other person's terrible, and like that whole thing. As we go on to create our experience over the next lunar month, part of our creativity will relate to how we work with obstacles, both inner and outer, which I've been talking about both this forecast. Shame and the fear of shame is an inner obstacle along many a creative path. It doesn't have to be fully ended or, fully healed before we do the thing. So we don't have to feel perfectly good about ourselves or perfectly talented before we step out there and take a creative risk. Doing the thing is an act of courage and transformation through which we are also healed. So it's not just this like blocked linear, like heal my stuff, then put myself out there, or be perfect and then be a healer. It's journeys that happen simultaneously, side by side, and constantly feed back to each other. And this is like the whole Leo energy of like, just get out there. Like there's so much hesitance and reticence and wanting to stay back and wanting to be good enough and all that. And what good does it do if you always stay hidden? Finally, the regality that we can experience in the Leo archetype comes from a person taking full ownership of their cosmic inheritance, of their full sense of self and their ego as part of it in this lifetime, their ego. It is an incredible and inspiring thing to do, an act of radiance. So Leo is such a fun energy. And I feel like as I'm talking about the new moon in Leo, we've talked about some heavy things because I see it as part of the Leo archetype because being in that full creative splendor is like this beautiful, like finished product of something that's actually very deep and very potent. And so we already have then too this new moon in conjunct these heavyweights in that triple Capricorn lineup. So I think that yes, this new moon is about radiance and fun and also about skillfully getting over ourselves. So thank you for tuning into this forecast with me. I don't know if I said at the beginning to please like, especially if you've watched this far, but please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know how you're doing. I really want to hear from you. I don't think anyone commented last week and I was sad about it. So I would love to hear from you and know what in this forecast resonated with you. And you can head over to my website, monarchastrology.com, to read the written version. You can also sign up for my mailing list to get all the forecasts sent to you and to get updates about courses and special offerings. Oh, yes, and you can book a reading at my website. And also, I'm really increasingly focused on one-on-one long-term mentorship, which is where we talk about your natal chart over a span of time and really talk about what you're going through, what's coming up in your life, what your blocks are, what your goals are, and work side by side with the astrology that you have in this life and what your transits are to progress with your goals and to overcome some of these inner obstacles that are always here along the path. So if you're interested in that and working with me in that capacity, you can send me an email at sabrina@monarchastrology.com to set up a free consultation. So I look forward to hearing from you, and whether that's by email or seeing you in my courses or in the comments below. Thank you for being here, and I hope that you have a beautiful new moon.